So today I'm just going to share my thoughts about what I think might appreciate in terms of cars, more premium, prestigious cars, sports cars. Think of M series cars, RS cars, stuff like that. And we're talking about the UK market here. So these are right hand drive, which tend to be lower numbers anyway, but obviously less demand compared to left hand drive. And one of the best places to research this is actually AutoTrader. The only problem with AutoTrader is you can't find past sales. You don't know how much something sold for, and you don't know how many cars were showing, like let's say 6 months ago, a year ago. I wish I knew how to get that kind of data. That would be massively useful. But anyway, you can still learn a lot from this. So, as an example, I'm here on AutoTrader. You can see there's like nearly 500,000 different ads here right now. And what we want to do first is just click on a brand that you're looking at. So BMW is a good example. It's a medium example because it's not necessarily a car that has a very high ceiling. That's something you need to consider. So that's one little tip I would share. All manufacturers, they seem to have a ceiling in terms of how high prices can go. For example, Ferrari ceiling is in the tens of millions, so 50 million, 60 million. That's not weird to buy a car for that much. But for a BMW, even paying 1 million is almost unheard of. So every manufacturer has a kind of ceiling, and you need to keep that in mind historically, because the people who invest in cars that are worth 500,000 or more are going to be very different for the people who invest in classic cars that are 10 to 50 grand, for example. So we're going to click on BMW. And another little tip I have for you is to get a quick idea within BMW of, in terms of older cars, what's sought after, what's not. What you could do here is just put maximum year, anything like, let's say, 2012 or something like that. So anything, like 14 years or older. And leave everything else blank. I usually put a minimum price just so I don't get loads of advertisements of cheaper cars, which just wastes time when you're scrolling through. So just put, let's say, 30 grand or something. Now you can see there's only 59 cars. So this should already be telling you only 59 cars out of the many tens of thousands of BMWs that are worth over 30 grand now that were pre 2012. That tells you everything you need to know. We'll compare Ferrari in just a minute. But here you go. So I'm just going to zoom out, and then what I want to do is I want to sort high to low. Like, these are literally the most expensive classic cars that BMW have. And these first ones are Z8s, which are reasonably well known. These have always been considered classics. I'll discuss that in just a minute. And then we quickly drop all the way down to nearly 100 grand already. So there are no commonly sought after £250,000 BMWs. This is really key when you're considering. A lot of people think about buying old M cars, me too, and thinking, one day they'll be worth 2x or 5x what you paid for it. Well, we have an issue there already. We've got one very low mileage M3 here. This is an E46. This is what you might call a dreamer ad, because yes, very low mileage. It might be worth 120, we don't know, but it's probably not that many sales we've seen of very low mileage E46 M3s that proves that this is a correct price for this car. We just don't know. Don't see any others listed around that price either. So that could be a dreamer price. And then before you know it, we're down at the 50 grands. And we've got the 1Ms. So these were famous. I believe it was the same 3 litre engine we got in the straight, and it's the straight six, naturally aspirated. And these were reasonably low numbers. I think it was the orange that was most sought after. And these, for many years, I thought, oh, they're going to be a classic at some point. But they've not moved in terms of price. So we're going to discuss the Z8 and also a CSL, which I'm not seeing here. I'm not seeing any CSLs on sale. Again, we're talking about E46, but I happen to know that a lot of them are still worth around 80 to 100 grand. So when people buy cars and they hope that they appreciate, a few things you need to be aware of. Most brand new cars, obviously at the beginning, they depreciate, and then that depreciation curve kind of slows down. Now, what happens in something that then appreciates and becomes a classic, which is obviously not all cars, it's a small percentage of rarer cars, usually race spec cars, bigger engines, unique, last off a line, that kind of thing, is they have their depreciation curve, and then somewhere between 6 to 10 years it flattens off, and then it starts to actually go the other way. And what we want to do as buyers looking for these appreciating classics, if this is something you're interested in, I very much enjoy this, and I'm always looking in this region here because I want to buy something here that's already ideally it's already beginning to appreciate. I'm trying to avoid stuff that's flatline. I've been stuck there before, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is literally almost free motoring. And people say it's free motoring. It's not really. You still have to pay for servicing, stuff like that. But when you compare, let's say an M3 E46 CS model or something like that, compared to some random crappy new BMW, 320i or whatever, you have free motoring because you have to pay maintenance on both. If things go wrong, you have to pay it on both. You may or may not have paid for warranty on the newer car, but when it's flatlined, it's almost free motoring. You're just paying for tax, a once a year service. Even if you keep it for a year, if you sell it, before that year, you might not even have to service it. But the problem is, in this flatline, there's a lot of M cars that are stuck here, like the CSL, like the CS, old M5s, the V10 SMG M5 as well, but maybe not that one. We'll discuss that in just a minute as well. A lot. And when I look at these, for example, which are already, these went up many, many years ago and jumped up to like near 200k. And the problem I have with these is they've kind of stayed there. And because these are even older, like, E46 M3 age or a smidge older, I think eventually people are going to get a bit bored of these and they just might start dropping. You can see higher mileage ones are now, under sub 150. So I think these are not overrated, but they've already re-rated higher. So you're not catching that curve. You're not buying them for 50 grand and now they're 200 grand. You're buying them at near 200 grand and taking a risk because in 10 years it could be worth the same, which means you'll lose out compared to inflation. Or they may have dropped because people are more interested in newer stuff, or they've got bored of them and started buying Ferraris and hold them instead. And it's the same with the CSLs. Brilliant cars, like, don't get me wrong, these my poster cars, and I've had loads of E46 M3s myself and E46 M3 CS. Never had a CSL, but would I buy one now? Well, it's already 100, which, as you can see, priced high to low. You're already one of the highest priced BMWs. There is one here, very low mileage here for 170, which I think is optimistic. But if this was more like 30,000 miles or something like that, I think it will still be 100, 110 grand. But you could argue that these might move slowly but surely. Out of everything, if there was one that I would want to consider, it'd possibly be the CSL. But like I said, I think it's moved already. But the other thing to note, just like market cycles, these price appreciations happen in cycles. It levels off, can go flat, jump again flat. I mean, think about really old Ferraris like Testarossas and stuff like that. 430s, what else? Maybe 355s a little bit, but not as much. But they go through these phases where they flatline and they're a new price now, and CSL's 100k, and then they'll have another leg higher for whatever reason. Maybe because the new, BMW stuff is such trash, or everything's moved to electric. Many different reasons. You can go through this cycle again and then again. Now, if of all the flatline stuff, I think the CSL and CS are the best. I prefer that to the 1 Series M's because CSL and CS, more people know about the 46 M3s. It was more sought after. It was more my generation and many kind of millions of other people. The great visceral experience when it comes to driving, that rasp of the straight six, and a lot of the owners are reluctant sellers, for example, as well. So I think that's a sweet spot there. The other ones to consider, you might see some on sale here, are the M5s, and in particular the SMG. There wasn't really another V10 M5, or there were very few saloon cars from what from my knowledge that were V10s. So, for example, I think there was the S8 S6 as well of that era, which wasn't a very good car. I owned one, but the V10 SMG, apart from issues, rod bearings, stuff like that, it could be a really good one to hold. So if we just focus on the M5 now, it's 4 on sale. So you can see here, very low miles one, 50 grand. Higher miles, well, there's another one here, 40,000, on for 40,000. So good prices really. And as you can see, there's very few. But I put a minimum here of 30 grand. So if I reduce that to say 20 grand, you can see a few other SMGs, higher miles. But I mean, these have been remarkably well for a 37,000 mile one to be still worth 30 grand now after all these years, 20 years old now. So it's clearly flatlined, but I think it's flatlined and gone up a tiny bit as well. So this would be a car, like if you want it as your daily driver and you don't do crazy miles, this would be one that would definitely hold your money and slightly go up. But is it the best chance of appreciation? Well, that's to be, you could definitely argue about that. But I think generally BMW is a good thing about them. What we've learned from the E30s and the CSLs is that they have shown appreciation before, whereas many of their competitors haven't ever shown appreciation. I'm going to switch now to Audi, and again, it's just the same thing. So looking at the older cars, 2012, want to remove some of the ads, so I'll just put price minimum something like 25 grand, something like that. We'll do the same. We'll do 30. So 74 cars. So you can see not many high to low. Obviously, you're going to get a lot of the, Audi R8s. BMW didn't really have an equivalent kind of sports car like that. Personally, I'm not keen on the R8s. I don't think they look anywhere near as good as Lambos and Ferraris. And again, we've not, the main thing, the most important thing, we've not seen proof of these low mileage manuals appreciating, stuff like that. Not really seen that, even though numbers of them are dwindling in terms of what's available on sale. And then if you ignore the R8s, what else is there? The RS4s, the old school 2.7s, they've again just been flatlining for many, many years, maybe up slightly, but I think interest for those would possibly fade as well in the coming years. I'm talking about 10 years from now. The RS4s, you've got this one here for very, very high price here. So this one here, I think very likely overpriced. But they haven't really done anything either. I had one of these before. Brilliant car. I had a Miltech exhaust on it and stuff. Unbelievable car. The manual RS4 Saloon. But they haven't really done anything. So that's it. There's nothing really going on in the world of Audis. I don't think there's anything here worth considering for now. Mercedes-Benz, very different. So there's probably quite a lot. And the main one is, you should see here, SLSs. Possibly some rarer AMG GTs as well with the SLS. So what do I mean by, proven appreciation? It's obvious with these SLSs. Now, first of all, in terms of rationale, you do a qualitative assessment. Like, is this a world that's permanently ended, these SLSs? Yes, naturally aspirated, 6.2 litre V8, never will be done again. Will wealthy buyers fantasize about these cars further down the line? Yeah. Could a modern car replicate 90% of this experience? Probably, but not the looks and not the gullwing. Don't really have gullwing on any other kind of usual German cars and stuff like that. Thinking about scissor doors and things like Paganis and stuff like that, Bugattis, but not your regular kind of sports cars and stuff. And is it beautiful from a distance? Yes. Owners becoming more reluctant to sell? Yes, more than likely. Are prices being defended higher? Yes. Does it feel timeless? Yes. In 15 years, will this feel even more special? It's yes to all of these questions I ask myself when looking at these. But the problem with these is if you go for the ones which are coupe, because those are the gullwing ones, I don't find the convertibles look anywhere near as good. So if we go for body type coupe, there's only 3. One's some sort of race version that got a Hartley, so ignore that one. There's only 2. And none of them in ideal color. But the main thing is these were selling, and I was regularly looking at these over many, many years. They've just slowly crept up. And it's not anything that's overnight either, which is important, which means as things start to creep up, you do see it first. You don't suddenly get a re-rating where these were 120 and tomorrow they're 260. It doesn't work that way unless something happens in the media and stuff like that. These slowly crept up, and it was obvious. And, I really wish I'd gotten involved in this particular market 5 or 8 years ago, but these were about 120, 130, and then they had a lot that were palladium silver, the grey, the Sensodyne, is it called grey? Those are the best colors. White, not so much. Black, not really either. Obsidian black's okay, but not really the best color. So you've got these two, which are not great, but they're on for 260. And if either of these were grey or silver, I think it would be 300, 320. So they've already gone up. But then the question now is, do you buy the convertible to play catch up? Something I'm looking at and considering, but even a lot of the convertibles are not ideal because I want the lighter grey. This is this one I believe is a wrapped, originally black. Just checking here. Yeah, it says here, you see it's obsidian black and is wrapped, so not ideal. So it's basically a black car. So there are no grey ones available or silver. You've got some of these. One's a Brabus, one's some sort of Oakley one, so nothing great. But if the right convertible one came up, I think it's a buy at 120-ish. I think it's a buy. A chance of that 2xing in 5 to 10 years, I'd say it's pretty high. Pretty, and I'll be very confident the gullwings would get to 500,000 because I have all of the, even I think these are even better than SLRs. I mean, everyone will have a different point of view, but I think they look a lot better than the SLRs. I had an SL55, and so it's a similar engine in the SLR. It's obviously a much, much better engine. But it's similar in terms of the fact that it's a supercharged V8. And from what I've heard, from what I've seen reviews, I don't think it was anything amazing to drive either. But it's these, and it's the Black Series AMG GTs. The other one I'm looking at, if I reset all of this, is AMG GTs, which, there's decent numbers off, but not ridiculous. And there were so many different variants. And within AMG GT, you can actually click on a model variant to quickly go through them. The ones that are interesting to me are the R Pro, and the C, which was the convertible, which actually is just a very good looking car. But the only problem then is this convertible, which never looks as good in these or the SLS as coupe. But yeah, very, very nice cars and very low numbers on the C. The good thing about the C and the R, I believe, compared to the S and the more standard one, is they had wider arches and stuff. So they actually just looked really, really good, had a really nice stance. But probably the better looking ones are the R, will probably be the best. So this thing, coupe, just good looking car. You can see side profile, not as good as the SLS. So the SLS kind of curved down and then went straight at the back. And I think it looked better without the wing. Again, it's everybody's personal opinion. But I think even these AMGs look better without the wing than with the wing. Whereas ironically, some people are the opposite. And with the SLS, when they take pictures, they push the temporary wing up to make it look a bit more race-ish. Now these had rarer variants, which are the Black Series, which is already very highly priced. So I just don't think there'll be any point there. So these are already at $350. But then the second rarest, I believe, is the Pro, R Pro. So these go for about $150. It's not a bad price. So yeah, you've got these sorts of options. I'll leave it there for this video, but in future ones, if you've enjoyed this, I'm going to talk about Ferraris, where we are with the Lamborghinis, Bentleys even. I think there's a couple of models there that could definitely appreciate, thinking about 6-litre W12 and stuff like that. And again, and obviously to discuss Porsches in a lot of detail, GT cars. And what we're thinking about with these is, were they pretty beautiful cars? Were they R-ish kind of generations? So the people who are now in their late 30s, 40s, stuff like that, who can now afford to get back into some of these cars and finally buy them for the first time, their poster cars. Is it cars that were the end of an era? Loads of those because of so many emissions changes, turboed cars, electric cars, stuff like that. Loads and loads of changes. So, and a lot of people say peak car, which I kind of agree with. We're in those early kind of 2010s, so 2010 to about 2016, something like that, may have been, the era of peak car in a lot of the famous brands. And do they feel timeless? And the good thing about those cars, the really good thing about those cars is you can absolutely use them now every day. And mechanically, they're quite sound. They, arguably have less electrical issues and stuff. Like you can run just about anywhere, but you can definitely run an E46 M3, no problem, as long as it's been maintained well and stuff like that. You can just use it as your normal daily driver to work and stuff like that. Because it's a brilliant car, and it's not so old that you're gonna have those issues. And me personally, I think those, I've often been curious about cars from the 80s, like the Shark 635, stuff like that, but they're just too old. They don't interest me, and I think a lot of people in my generation, they wouldn't interest either. And you've got the issues with maintenance, the fact that they just weren't great cars to drive at all. So I think those ones are not going to do as well. I think it's the newer ones that we have the opportunity on catching that curve early, and in 5-10 years some of these will re-rate a lot higher, in my opinion. Anyway, thanks for listening.